Sangye Shindu Vite Uwagi Droku Nanda Shiva Shupasho Nidam Guru Ratmandana Kamila Kayami Sangye Chulam Soki Shokamba Jantu Bardu Dakni Kapsushi Daki Jinyang Gempe Sunangi Jola Penchir Sangye Drupasho Sangye Chulam Soki Shokama Jantu Bardu Dakni Kapsushi Daki Jinyang Gempe Sunangi Jola Benchir Sangye Drupasho Sangye Chulam Soki Chokamba Jantu Bardu Dakni Kapsuchi Daki Jinyang Gempe Sunangi Jola Benchir Sangye Drupasho.
So please sit comfortably for a few minutes of breathing meditation. Check that your spine is straight. Torso is level. Breathing through your nostrils if you can. Please count 21 cycles of exhalations followed by inhalations in one cycle. And just follow the breath and stay focused there. Bring your awareness to your heart and visualize or feel or imagine a bright white light there. Just in front of your spine. And once you have that clearly, then bring your awareness to someone you saw suffering today, whether it was yourself or someone else in the world. Get a very clear picture of their unhappiness and their suffering state. get a real sense for what they're going through. We're going through. Really tune into it and try to have a visceral relationship with them. Now visualize and imagine their suffering in the form of black smoke coming out of them towards you in a stream of blackness, and see it just pausing there in front of your heart and collecting there outside of your body in front of you at the level of your heart. You see all of their suffering leaving them and coming to reside there just in front of you. And see it become smaller and darker. Bring your awareness back to your heart and the brilliant white light there. And now watch this small black mass come into the white light and in a flash instantly be destroyed. And see this white, radiant light streaming out of your heart to the person there you're experiencing. See them filled with joy and happiness and love and goodness as this white light that streams from your heart fills them. And feel that very viscerally and strongly, their joy and their happiness. Feel them relieved of all their problems and just completely relaxed and happy, joyous. Dancing, just very light. And you can see this white light filling yourself in the same way too. Joy and love and goodness and happiness. And you can rest in that and abide in that anytime. So this is a brief Lojong meditation, and tonight we're doing Lojong. And it's good to do this with yourself. You can see yourself from earlier in the day or in the future or the past or the present. You can see your friends and your enemies. And you can do it with every living being. So, very basic Lojong meditation. So, we have two classes on Lojong, which she very kindly started us off with last week by asking about mind training and shortening the gap in one's response time and how they respond to their normal reaction, their visceral reaction when someone treats them badly, and how we shorten that response time and how we shorten that reaction time, right? So when we get into Lojong, that's what Lojong is about. Lojong is about working with our mind and training our mind, right? Lojong means developing a good heart. Lo means mind and Zhong is training. Zhong also means to make pure. So, what does it mean to have a good heart? It just means to sort of have a soft, sweet, fuzzy feeling. What does it mean to generally be a good person? what are we talking about when we talk about developing a good heart in Lojong? I mean, Lojong also means developing the wish for enlightenment. So when you talk about a good heart, it can have a lot of connotations, from soft and fuzzy to very technically defined and specific, right? So as we're speaking about it, in a Buddhist context, when we speak of Lojong and developing a good heart, we're really talking about a radical way of living, a radical way of thinking, and a radical way of relating to the world, which is opposite of what we normally do, right? So much more difficult than Buddhist logic or philosophy or studying or meditating or pretty much anything else. It's about how we relate to the people around us and how we act and react with the people around us, and what our sort of heart's response is to the people around us, right? Your family, the people at work, all day long, right? So everyone around us is basically having a normal samsaric existence, right? They're suffering, aging, and dying, right? Everyone is spending their life trying to get things which they can't keep and which they lose. And so we're all in the same boat together, right? Everything we ever work for, we're going to lose. Everyone we ever tried to get to love, we're going to lose sooner or later. And we're all in the same boat, right? Every single person that we meet is facing the same circumstances. So when you have this Lojong feeling, it's having this awareness of everyone's suffering and everyone's circumstance, including our own. It's not just them, it's them and us, right? It's acknowledging the reality, the Buddhist reality of life, which is that we can never be satisfied. Everything is limited. Whatever we get will fluctuate and be lost. And it's all the things we've talked about in so many different classes and courses, right? From a Buddhist perspective, it's a losing proposition to externally work to get and retain and maintain the outer things in the world of life, right? So Lojong is about loving the people around us who are losing the good things they have continuously and moving towards death continuously, right? We all waste our life and waste our time trying to get external things to satisfy us and bring us happiness and to in some way feel like we've got a good life or a satisfying life or a fulfilled life or something else, right? So it's changing our heart to be good to the people around us. And it takes a lot of practice, right? It's not natural. I mean, our natural reaction when we're walking down the street is not to feel some kind of love towards everyone that we pass by, right? Our natural reaction is not to think some kind of kind thought to everyone we encounter all day long. I mean, it's not mine. I can't speak for you. I mean, I have no idea what you all think, right? But speaking for I'm supposed to do it this way. Speaking for myself, right? I can say for a fact that as I walk down the street, it's not my habit to think, oh, I love you so much, person walking by me that I just met.
Is it too early to ask for examples? Just kidding.
Give me a few minutes, okay? So these Lojong texts are instructions about how to change the way we feel about people, relate to people, interact with people in the world. How to develop a heart and mind and life and being which cares about other people and relates properly, spiritually, appropriately to other people, right? Which is the opposite of our normal reaction, right? And so there are many different Lojong verses, and we're working with the first Chunky Rinpoche, who was Babonka Rinpoche's incarnation. He was the Lama to the first Emperor of China. And so there are many. We're going to use different Lojong texts, but many of these verses are considered a whispered tradition, where they were whispered from teacher to student in a sacred moment, in a very holy moment. They'd be just spoken very quietly and very personally and very softly to the student as a private personal instruction as to how to live their life and how to engage in their practice and how to work on themselves and how to change their heart, right? And so as we evolve in our spiritual practice, more and more things start to seem like this personal advice, and eventually every teaching feels like personal advice. So, Zhang means training, and like any training, when he's like Lo Zhang, mind training, Zhang means training, and like any training, the more you work at it, the better you become, right? If you want to be a great dancer, if you want to be a great musician, if you want to be a great yogi, if you want to be a great scholar, if you want to be a linguist, doesn't matter. The more you practice and the more you train, the better you become at it. And the same is true of mind training. It's not anything magical, it's not anything automatic, it's simply how much do we train? Are we training ourselves seriously, and are we engaging in some kind of disciplined, consistent training, right? And if we are engaging in consistent, disciplined training, then we get good results like anything, right? And it's this attitude of feeling that we're all in the same boat. Everyone around us is in the same boat. It's all subject to the same sinking ship, where we're all going to lose everything and we're all going to die. And to try to love and help the people around us, in that circumstance. So there are a lot of Lo Zhang verses, and I'm not going to read through them all. So they start off by talking about how the people around us are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, right? And so the obvious question is, why? Why is G and Paul, and why is everyone some kind of very significant being to me? Why are they some very special being to me, right? So, if I said to you, tell me what paradise looks like. What does tantric paradise look like? Or what does enlightenment look like? Describe it to me. What would you, give me a description. Throw some stuff out. We can't. We have no idea. We have no concept, like zero clue, right? It's like, well, I want to get enlightened. Okay, what is that? What's it look like? Tell me about it. What's it feel like? What's it look like? What happens? What are you doing all day long, right? No idea at all, right? None. So, when they talk about Tantra being secret or self-secret, this is one of the ways and reasons in which it is secret. We don't even have a concept to talk about it. We don't even have a concept of what the result is. We don't have a concept of what the goal is. And so we can't imagine the end result, and we can't imagine the process to get to the end result. So our minds, an ordinary human mind or an ordinary being's mind, doesn't even have an understanding of the path or the result. The path to get to heaven or enlightenment, or what the result of heaven or enlightenment is like, right? So this is what the verse is referring to. They're saying the only thing that will bring you to enlightenment, the only thing that will bring you to tantric paradise is the people around you. That's all, nothing else. Period. So they are your wish-fulfilling jewel. They are your most precious jewel and gem. Okay? There is nothing more precious than the people around you, those beings around you, because there is nothing else which will bring you to enlightenment and paradise, right? There is no other way to become enlightened other than through everyone and everything you interact with. Okay? So to attain an ultimate angel's body, you have to do it with other people, right? So they're going to get us to heaven, right? And we have to think, thank you. Like, everyone here, you're going to get me to heaven. Thank you. I love you. I care for you. Let me help you. Let me be kind to you, right? Let me be thoughtful towards you, right? Let me learn to be kind with you, right? So it's like that, right? So, there's so many things to say about it, but once in a while we might get upset. Once in a while, we might get upset and have a negative thought. Perhaps, once a week, no, once a minute, whatever. But the minute we start feeling badly towards someone, we have to stop it, right? We have to take hold of ourselves and stop the thought and stop the behavior, right? They're suffering the same as we are, right? It's our problem, not theirs, right? And we have to recognize where the problem is coming from, and we have to stop our habitual reaction, right? We have to admit that it's our problem and be aware of the loss of karma, be aware of the fact that everything around us is an empty object or a blank screen which we're projecting onto, right? And that according to the laws of karma, even one moment of slight irritation at another person brings great negative results, right? So this is a key point in practicing mind training, that we observe moment to moment whether we're generating negative mind, right, negative karma, and that we catch ourselves as quickly as possible and as immediately as possible and rein it in and stop it, right? And it's very difficult. It's very difficult to live the way that the verses describe, right? I mean, we all know that we're supposed to do it, but somehow we're cursed in that we can't really do it very easily, right? It's not an easy thing to do. So just to read one verse, this is from the Diamond Lion, Lojong, it's called Diamond Lion. It says, other people, because they're jealous, will say bad things to me out of jealousy and such. May I take the loss myself and offer the profit to others with great love and respect. And all of these different Lojong verses, going back and looking at it, I really encourage you to do the reading. There's so many beautiful verses, so many beautiful poetic verses, and we don't have time to go through them all, but it's really quite sweet. So, we must analyze and figure out where the bad things in life are coming from, right? If somebody's jealous, if somebody's angry, if somebody's mistreating us, we have to be aware of why it's happening, right? Yes, they're yelling at me, or yes, they're jealous of me, or yes, they're criticizing me, right? Why? Where are they coming from? I caused it in the past, okay? I have to understand that, and I have to act accordingly. If I don't understand that, and if I don't acknowledge that, and if I don't live in congruence with the laws of karma and emptiness, then I'm doomed to continue to suffer, and I'm not practicing Lojong. What are we training the mind? We talk about mind training, right? What are we training the mind in? Karma and emptiness, right? I mean, how can you have some kind of loving thought, some kind of compassionate feeling, some kind of benevolence towards a person who's indifferent to you, or negative to you, or critical toward you, if you don't have some kind of really deep understanding of karma and emptiness, of causation and the nature of projection and the fact that everything is a blank screen, right, that we're projecting onto. I mean, if you don't have that, it's virtually impossible, right? I mean, it becomes almost sort of nonsense, or irrational, or just a bad Dharma teaching which you can't understand, where people are saying, oh, turn the other cheek, let them hit me again, right? And it's not the point at all, right? So, and it's the hardest teaching to follow. It's the goal of Buddhism. It's not possible to reach paradise until we figure it out. Until we can understand that, until we can live in congruence with that, it's not possible to reach paradise. Why? I mean, I ask you, this is not a rhetorical question. Why? Yeah.
Well, too many stains. That
You're just collecting negative karma. Yeah. I mean, if you don't understand it, if you don't do it, you're just collecting negative karma all day long. Right? The only way to stop collecting negative karma is to understand this stuff, right? Yeah.
I'm sorry for not understanding completely, or maybe it's a question, but did you say that if someone's yelling at you in a way because of karma, you deserve it, you deserve that?
No. So it's a really. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
No, I mean that's basically my question.
So it's a wonderful question, and we're going to come to it in more detail later. There are a lot of possible misinterpretations of Lojong verses in text, and we're going to get into a lot of those verses which parallel that question. But the short answer is no. It doesn't mean that. If someone's yelling at us or mistreating us or doing whatever to us, it's extremely important to understand why it's happening, what caused it, right? And to act in a karmically appropriate manner. What is a karmically appropriate manner? To not be negative, to not perpetuate negativity, to, at the very least remain neutral, right? And preferably to offer some kind of, positive goodness, right? Positive energy or positive virtuous response, right? Loving, compassionate, wise, whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever flavor you want to go with. So, what this verse is talking about is saying, look, people are going to be angry at you. People are going to be jealous at you. May I pray. The verse says, may I, when someone is jealous, and when someone is angry, may I take the loss myself and offer the profit to them, right? Meaning, okay, they're yelling at me. Okay, they're angry at me. No. Is it, if I negotiate with them, if I yell back, if I logically try to convince them that they shouldn't be yelling at me, or they shouldn't be jealous of me, are any of those things addressing the true cause of them being angry or jealous right now? No, I collected the cause 5 years ago or 5 lifetimes ago, karmically. You know, the reason someone's yelling at me right now, the reason someone's angry at me right now is because I collected the cause by yelling at someone else in the past, being angry at somebody in the past, or being jealous of someone in the past, right? And if I understand the nature of karma and causation, right, and karmic seeds and ripening and emptiness and the rest, if I understand all that, then I, as a well-educated practitioner, will say, God, it really sucks. It really sucks that they're yelling at me. It's really unpleasant that they're yelling at me. It's really painful that they're jealous of me. And I know where that came from. And I know what caused that. And I know the true cause of that. And I know the true solution to getting rid of that. I know how to get rid of that, really, truly. And the only way to get rid of it is to not yell and not be jealous and not, respond in kind. So that's what we're talking about here. So what this verse is saying is, if someone's jealous of me, reason is not going to convince them to stop being jealous of me, right? Not being jealous 5 years ago would have stopped the jealousy now, but it's too late, right? So all we can do in the present moment is take the loss and offer the profit to others with great love and respect. And what do they say? Follow the laws of karma and emptiness, right? Understand that this was caused in the past. The result is now ripening, and what I'm doing in the present moment is planting the karmic seeds for the future, right? By offering a loving, respectful attitude in response to them, by letting them have their feeling or say what they're going to say, I'm not perpetuating this for the future, right? And then, of course, you have to address the caveat of, you can't let people mistreat others. You can't let people harm others. You have to address that so that they themselves are not engaging in negativity and collecting negativity, right? And so then there's the fine line of how do you do it without being angry yourself? Mm-hmm. How do you do it without being jealous yourself, right? Yeah.
To address this question, though, if you understand the laws of karma, when someone is yelling at you, it seems like it'd be easy to look at that and say, it was one way to look at it when you say I deserve that, in that I've created that in the past, and therefore I deserve having, my boss yell at me, right? That seems like one side of the coin, right?
Yeah, see,
or there's an accountability, which I think that's where we're at. So it's a very subtle difference of how do you find that?
And it's a very important point, and we'll see as we go through this. The I'm bad, or the I'm guilty, or the I failed, or the self-flagellation component is not productive, and it's not the point.
Right.
And it's not part of this. You see, this is just cold, cool, calculated logic. That's all.
It's not personal.
It's not personal.
It's just
mystic karma is not personal.
Right.
Well, it is personal. Don't take it personally. Don't say it that way.
Right.
Don't have any hard feelings. I don't know how to say it, right? Mr. Karma comes back at you. Don't have any hard feelings, right?
Yeah. That's so interesting because one way of looking at karma is if you threw a rock up in the air, later you get hit by a rock, you're going like, who the hell threw that rock at me?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a punishment. It's just a natural law, a result.
No guilt. I mean, you could feel like an idiot. I threw a rock up and it hit me in the head and I feel really stupid. It's about like that, right?
But the other thing I want to ask is, this verse is so complicated because also there's no me that they're yelling at if you understand emptiness completely as well. So it's not only on one hand the karmic, where is it coming from, it's also the other hand, they're not really hurting me because I don't exist as I inherently think I exist.
And that's an important element of Lojong, and very important, which we're going to come to. A very important element of Lojong is the self-cherishing, the aspect of self-cherishing the self and cherishing the self, which speaks to that. Right?
And the even more interesting part is by not inflicting your own anger to retaliate with the other person as an opponent, you're actually helping cure them of future bad karma because they won't be induced to do further harm, which will lead to negative karma to themselves.
Yeah, it's a good point. You're not stirring them up to perpetuate, right?
Instead, you're trying to be giving them respect and love, and hopefully that will transform them.
Yeah, I mean, you don't win by struggling against people. I mean, karmically, you never win by struggling against people. It's impossible. No affliction is ended by struggling against someone, right? Doesn't work. Doesn't happen, right? So, any kind of controversy, competition, problem between two human beings, they're saying to decide to take the loss for yourself and give the advantage to the other person, right? If there's someone who would take advantage of you, if there's someone who would, treat you badly, right? Someone who wants to exploit you, right? Say, take the loss. What's the fastest way to get that person out of your life, right? Is to serve them with some kind of loving kindness. It's like, oh, you want to be really nasty and mean to me? Let me be loving and kind to you. Fastest karmic solution, right? To end that and to be done with it, right? Anyone who would treat you badly would just gradually disappear from your life. And you have to keep your vows, right? And the normal approach doesn't work. The normal approach of I'll be smarter, I'll be faster, I'll be stronger, I'll be louder, I'll be more aggressive, I'll dominate them, I'll outwit them. None of those things work. They don't, right? So, as bodhisattvas, we're sworn to serve other people and to offer them all happiness. I mean, if you have bodhisattva vows, you've taken a vow to offer every happiness to everyone you ever meet, human and non-human, right? So, I mean, it's very much aligned with that as well. And it's the only way to be happy yourself, right? So, we have to prevent people from misdeeds where they would hurt themselves, collect negative karma, or hurt others. And that's always true in every case, right? So, keep that footnote with everything we're talking about, right? We don't want to contribute to or allow other peoples to engage in harm where they themselves will collect negative karma, right? We want to interject and intercede in the proper way, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to reach a point where we're willing to give up the things which are dearest to us in a moment's notice. I want the cake. I want the best seat at the movie theater. I say, we talk about ego, You have to give away every good thing and offer every happiness to everyone around you. And what's the natural human reaction?
I don't want to do that.
And then I won't have it. If I do that, I won't have anything good, right? I mean, if I give away all the good stuff, what do I have? Nothing. I get the crap. I mean, how is that going to lead to my happiness? How am I going to have a good life if I do that? That's crazy. Why would I do that? I mean, this is a normal human reaction. It is. And it's, in a normal human world, it's utterly logical. Not logical according to the laws of karma, right? Not congruent with the laws of karma. And this is really where we're drawing the line, is are we living according to the ordinary human conventions, right? And values and mores that we grew up with and that our society teaches us and our parents taught us? Or are we living and training ourselves to live in congruence with the laws of karma and ethics and, and ultimate reality? So, and that's what these Lojong verses are about. These Lojong verses, the mind training is about training the mind to behave and to think and to function congruently with the laws of karma. Not with what we grew up with. The opposite of what we grew up with, right? And so there's a lot of training in that. We've been habituated our entire lives to think and behave a certain way. The way that says, get for myself and let everyone else get for themselves, and may the best man or woman win, right? And as long as I look out for myself and can get something for myself, I'll be happy. As long as I can carve a piece of the pie for myself, as long as I can get key things and certain stuff for myself, I'll be happy. If I can get X, Y, and Z, I'll be happy, whether it's money, person, or thing, right? If I can get a certain combination, I'll be happy. Well, I can tell you, I spent my first 5 years out of university doing that. Oh, fast car, fast girl, nice house, more going out, less going out. It doesn't work. You can try any combination of anything you want externally, and it doesn't bring satisfaction and it doesn't bring happiness. It brings diversion and distraction and pleasure for a while. And so, we need to be very clear about this, and we need to make these fine distinctions around what is pleasure and what is distraction and what is satisfaction versus what is happiness and what is fulfillment, right? And what is spiritual evolution and some kind of high bliss, high sustained paradisical experience, right? So that's what we're talking about when we talk about mind training the mind to function and think and exist that way, as opposed to the ordinary human way that we were, born, raised, and indoctrinated, right? And so this verse is saying, give away every good thing you have, even if the person is unjust, unreasonable, unkind, jealous, angry, doesn't matter, you know? And so then the first Chunka Rinpoche says you have to have two attitudes when you take a loss to yourself. First, realize that it's going to get you to Buddha paradise, you know? Realize that this act is an enlightened act and a wise act, right? And a virtuous spiritual act. And be happy about it. You know, feel good about it. Have joy in doing it. And get off on it. You know, it's not like something, you know, have the cake that I really want, you know? I mean, and then secondly, to not have regrets. Don't have any regrets either in the present when you're doing it or in the future. You know, if I give away my house to someone or my car to someone, thinking it's some great bodhisattva deed or some great lojong activity, and then I'm seriously unhappy for the next however many weeks, no good. So regretting a virtue destroys the virtue, essentially. It destroys the karma, you know. So having any kind of regret about a virtue destroys virtue, you know. And so better to do what you're comfortable with and what you're capable of, rather than overdoing.
Which is why you said, you know, start with potatoes.
Yeah, Master Shanti did,
so
right?
you don't feel regret at something that you couldn't afford to give or somehow felt you couldn't part with.
Yeah, exactly. Master Shanti Deva says, start where you are. Don't pretend you're some big guru, spiritual practitioner, yogi, whatever, and then do things which are beyond your means, and then you're just unhappy and miserable. And I mean, I can tell you, I spent years and years doing Dharma projects, saying, I'm doing virtue, I'm doing this great Dharmic virtue, highest virtue, you know. And, you know, it's a lousy attitude and a miserable attitude, and like, you know, sort of feeling resentful, like, oh, I can't believe I have to do all this work and nobody's helping, and you know, I can't believe there's like crazy teachers, like, you know, telling me to do this, that, and the other, and I have to do all these things, and you know, it's work where you're at. It's not the way to go, you know. So, okay, next verse. Well, this is another verse of the Diamond Line Lojong. It says, if I turn to another person with the great hopes that they will help me, and they unjustly hurt me badly, may I see them as my highest spiritual friend and as my Lama, right? So, I mean, you know, co-workers, partners, family members, great teachers, right?
It's a tough one.
Very tough. All of these are very tough, right? And so, you know, all of these people are teachers in that they're reminding us of the true nature of samsaric life, the true nature of human life. You know, we get into some kind of fantasy thing in our heads that life should be like this. Life should be easy. Life should be good. I should be happy. There's all these shoulds, right?
Life should be me getting what I want.
Yeah, I should have all the things I want in life. Should. You know, this is what human life is supposed to be like. This is what human life is like. And somehow I'm failing, you know, somehow I'm the only one who's not getting it. Somehow, like, life is like that. Everybody gets what they want. Everybody's happy. This is some kind of fallacy that we're indoctrinated to, right, in the world, in our normal lives. It's like there's like all these forces out there, media and commercialism and whatnot, you know, brainwashing us to think that, you know, you will have a happy life. Just buy our product and you will have a happy life. You know, what else do you need? Just buy our product. Life is happy. Look at all the happy people we're portraying everywhere you go, you know?
But what about following our bliss? Doesn't that come from this room too?
Yeah. So the point that they're making is that let's say it differently, right? Any happiness we have, right, comes from seeds we planted in the past, right? From treating others well, right? That's not what our normal life tells us. Our normal life and our normal inputs, programming, influences of media and people and all the rest do not tell us that if you're virtuous, you'll be happy, right? They tell us if you do pretty much anything other than being virtuous, you'll be happy and you'll be successful, right? So what this verse is saying is that the baseline of human life is to be dissatisfied. I mean, that's the first Buddhist principle, right? Life is samsara, dissatisfactory. Life is suffering or dissatisfaction, right? We can never be satisfied. We can never find lasting happiness as a human being, right? So, all the people in our lives that we meet, where we have unpleasant interactions, are really kind of the baseline state, if you will, of a normal human life. And just a reminder of what normal human life is. Okay? It doesn't have to be that way. And so this verse is saying that every time we think someone's going to give us what we want so that we're happy. You know, I think I'm going to meet a new partner, you know, and I'm going to be happy. Like, you get married or whatever is a perfect example. I'm going to get married and I'm going to have this kind of life, and I'm going to be, you know, new boyfriend, new girlfriend, new wife, new husband, and life will be great. We'll have a good life together. You know, we're compatible. You know, they're going to bring this to the relationship and that to the relationship, and I expect to have this and I expect to have that, right? And lo and behold, somehow it doesn't work out.
They betray you. I think that's what it says, right?
Yeah, you might say they betray you.
That's
You might
awful.
say
That's one of the most awful things to have happen.
yeah, so they disappoint you, they're dissatisfying, they're unpleasant, they betray you. I mean, any number of permutations of the above. You grow apart. There's all sorts of euphemisms, right? From a Buddhist, or they're just like they become an idiot after 6 months or a year, right? Whatever, you pick, right? I mean, from a Buddhist perspective, that's normal human existence. And so all these people are just sort of ordinary. They're like routine, ordinary reminders of what human life is like. And don't expect it to be any different if you're just living an ordinary human life. It is the baseline, right? So that's the point here. And so what they're saying is if I turn to another person with great hopes that they'll help me, and they unjustly hurt me badly, which is like your partner, you know, your wife, your kids, right? Your boss, your coworkers, pretty much anybody you spend any meaningful time with, right? And then it says, may I see them as my highest spiritual friend, and that's my love. Yeah, that's very heavy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
But it's a beautiful thing, concept.
Because they are simply reminding me of the nature of suffering human life. So that I can do something about it. So that I can, you know, wake up and do what I need to do to not have an ordinary suffering human life. Right? And so, you know, it goes back to the previous verse, you know, offer them every gain, offer them every benefit, right? And so if there's anyone in our life who really irritates us, it's a reflection of our mind, our mental state, and our practice, if you will. So it means, you know, we haven't yet reached our Dharma goals because our level of mental affliction and dissatisfaction is at whatever level, right? And as we evolve spiritually and dharmically, right, we have less and less mental afflictions and less irritation and less of that going on in our mind and our life. And it's not to say that crap doesn't happen, right? I mean, one could meditate for 10 years and have heavy shit right there, right? Sometimes when you're practicing really well, you know, negative karmas accelerate, and it's actually a sign of good practice. What is one's response, though, you see? I mean, one can have very heavy suffering as a great practitioner. But what's the state of one's mind when that comes down? You know, what is one thinking about, and how is the mind responding when that heavy suffering comes down? You know, which is the point of all of these lojong, which is the point of all this mind training, right? So the next verse is, in brief, may I give help and happiness to all living beings directly and indirectly, and may I take on myself secretly all of their bad deeds and suffering. So they're going a step further here. They're saying, look, it's not just if the people I'm looking to for happiness in my life screw me over. You know, it's not just if that happens, right? Should I have some kind of love and compassion for them? They're saying that all the generic problems of the world, all of the bad deeds of everyone in the world, right? Saying, all the bad deeds and suffering of everyone in the world, may I take it on? Random people I've never met before, people that are irrelevant to my life, you know, people who are martyrs and murderers and rapists and thieves and liars and cheats and on and on and on, right? May I take on all their suffering and may I take on all their problems. That's heavy too, right?
And I think the word was secretly taken off. Right?
So there are 2 points there. It says directly and indirectly, and then secretly. So and the point here is anytime someone's going to hurt us or hurt someone else, I want it to happen to me, right? Now again, I ask you, is that a good idea in the world? Shoot me, not him.
Sounds scary.
Is that a good idea in the world? Not conventionally, right? Karmically. I'm not advocating this, but let's just take this to a logical karmic examination. If somebody pulled a gun and they were about to shoot Matt, and I said, "Don't shoot Matt, shoot me instead. I'm a bodhisattva." I was like, I don't want Matt to get hurt. I'd rather be hurt than you hurt Matt. Is it possible that person would shoot me if I had not collected the causes? Karmically, no. Impossible.
Even if you wish it?
Well, again, if I had collected the causes. So what would be an appropriate cause? The only cause to be harmed is harming someone else. So, so we have to think to the karmic connections.
But to you, being shot by a bullet would not be being harmed. It would be doing a great service to Matt.
So this is
something you wish.
I mean, that's another sort of angle. But I'm just saying, the fact of a bullet hitting me, let's just leave it at that, okay?
Yeah.
Would it be possible for a bullet to enter my body if I had not collected the causes for that to happen? Karmically, no, impossible. You see? So you can talk about this stuff philosophically and logically, but when it comes right down to it, it's hard to live it, right? It's very hard to live it. And and as I said before, you have to work at the level where you're at so that you don't have any regrets, etc., etc., etc. But so as we talk through these things, you see the logic of it, right? You understand the principle of it. Very hard to live it, very hard to do it, right? So to continue with this verse, do it secretly. They're saying, don't make a big show of things. If you're helping people, do it quietly, do it inconspicuously, do it secretly. I mean, I have to say, it just is like a humorous pet peeve of mine. Every time I go to a Bloomin' Dharma teaching somewhere, somebody inevitably gets up after the teacher has started teaching to make a show of bringing them tea in the middle of the friggin' talk. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You're interrupting the talk. I don't get it. What, you feel some need to be ostentatious in showing that you're serving the teacher? It doesn't really fit with, the teachings. To say, look at me. I'm like serving the teacher. Aren't I wonderful? Hello? I mean, come on, people. I marvel every time. Why didn't you do that 30 seconds before they started teaching? I mean, it's like, I don't get it. Anyway, maybe there's a reason I'm just ignorant. It's possible. I'm ignorant about a lot of things. So, anyway, so they're saying quietly, secretly, help people and fix things for people, right? Give up all the good things you can, and don't even let them know about it. If you love cake and there's just one slice left, and you just don't even say anything, and you wait to see if anyone else takes it, and you're like biting your lip and restraining yourself and sweating bullets, the entire time, great. You don't need to say, I really like that cake and I let you have that last piece, and I hope you acknowledge me for it, No, wrong approach, right? And it's like that with everything, right? So then they talk about directly and indirectly. So that's the directly, is help give happiness to everyone directly. And then indirectly is the visualization we just did at the beginning of class, right? It's Tonglen practice where you visualize all the problems that are happening to someone or to everyone in the world. You can do that visualization with every living being simultaneously. You can have the same visualization with every being in every realm simultaneously, which is very powerful, right? You can do it with yourself if you're having a bad day, yourself of an hour ago or whatever. And so taking all the problems into you on your breath and destroying it in one breath and fantasizing about, and it's, think about it, it's not even fantasizing, it is imagining, whatever. It's imagining that you have the capacity to end all the suffering in the world, right? Which is very powerful karma. And it's especially important to do if you're sick or at the moment of your death. It's a very powerful practice. We talked about it in other classes. It's a very powerful death practice, right? Is to do this Tonglen at the time of death. Imagining that you're taking all death into yourself and all the suffering of death into yourself at the time of death. Right? The breath goes out like white light or nectar. It spreads to all beings and gives every living being the things that they want. Right? So then there's another verse of the Diamond Lion Lojong that says, don't let your Lojong practice be polluted by the 8 worldly thoughts, by having the 8 worldly thoughts and being motivated by the 8 worldly thoughts, right? So these are 8 ideas, and they're described either as 8 ways of seeing things as self-existent, or what are called 8 worldly dharmas, or 8 worldly thoughts, right? So 8 worldly thoughts are kind of 8 corrupted motivations, or 8 wrong motivations for engaging in your life, or your spiritual practice, or your daily activity. And so the first one is being happy if you get something. Like, of course, we get good things. We want to be happy, we want to enjoy, no problem. It's not what they're talking about here. What they're talking about is some kind of unreasonable happiness, some kind of sort of unrealistic happiness, right? So, every good thing we get is going to come to an end, and every bad thing that happens to us is going to come to an end. Don't get too worked up about it. Don't get too, hopped up on the self-existent thing, which is like finally brought me happiness, where I'm gonna now be happy forever because I have it. As long as I can hold on to it, I'll be happy. I finally met the perfect person, and now I'm happy. And as long as they stay in my life, I'll stay happy. And I gotta keep them in my life just so I remain happy. That's what they're talking about, right? It's like, so don't have some kind of unreasonable happiness when you get good things. Yes, be happy. Of course, enjoy it. But don't have some kind of crazy idea, Okay? So that's what they're talking about being happy when you get something. It's the first worldly dharma. And then being upset when you don't get something, right? Even if I'm being a great practitioner. I'm keeping my vows. I'm meditating regularly. I'm being kind to people. I'm being loving to people. And bad things are happening to me, right? If you're practicing well, the negative karma can start to ripen quickly. And by practicing well right now, I'm setting up my future. Okay, it's not going to happen in the next 30 seconds or the next minute or the next day, right? So when you don't get something you want, don't get unduly upset. You collected the karma for what's happening in the past. You're experiencing it, and by living appropriately in the present moment, you're creating your future, right? So don't get all bent out of shape when things are really crappy. It's not like, what am I doing wrong right now? It's not that I'm doing anything wrong right now. It's what did I do wrong 5 years ago, or 5 lifetimes ago. It's like, man, I wish I weren't such a crappy person, last lifetime, or 10 years ago, or whatever it was. I wish I hadn't been such a schmuck last year, right? Or last lifetime, or I don't know how long ago, right? So that's the point here, is just don't get unduly upset. Don't have some unreasonable disruption of your mind and your life when you don't get what you want and when things don't go well. You set up the causes in the past. Just focus on doing what you need to do in the present to set up the causes for your future, right? So then another of the sort of 8 worldly dharmas are being happy when you feel good. Right? Great to be happy. Okay? But as a true Dharma practitioner, right, you're being loving to people all the time, whether you feel good or not, right? So you just react to people with kindness and compassion and joy and love, whether you're happy or not, right? And that's similarly being unhappy when you don't feel good. It's very hard to be kind to other people when you don't feel good, right? It's like, I have a headache, I'm depressed, I feel really worried, I feel really insecure. Very hard to be loving to someone, right? Very hard to, to say nice things to people when you're in that state. So that's the point here is getting really bent out of shape when you're not feeling well is not called for. All right? Try to practice nicely whether you're feeling good or whether you're feeling badly, right? And then there's being happy if you become well known. Don't get too excited because it's going to change, right? If you become popular, you become famous, you become well known, fine. Still, just go on being virtuous, right? Being happy if you're not well known, right? Same thing, right? Nobody knows you, nobody cares about you. You could die tomorrow, nobody would care. It's okay. Just go about your bodhisattva activities, and quietly and happily and privately, engaging in loving kindness and virtue. No problem, right? And so then there's praise and blame. So being happy if you praise, or being unhappy if someone blames you, right? So it's the same thing. It's like, oh my God, what would my mother say if she knew I was doing this? If she knew that I was like going on a retreat, if my mother knew that I was like, into this Buddhist thing, what would my mother say? Oh, don't worry about it, right? You're going to get praised for things you didn't do, and you're going to get blamed for things you didn't do. Because when somebody yells at you at work, or blames you at work, or says you're X, Y, and Z, it's not coming from what you did 30 seconds before. It's coming from karmic causes of years ago or lifetimes ago, right? So, that's really the point with all of these things is don't get thrown off, don't become imbalanced, and don't lose your sort of bodhisattva center because you're being praised, because you're being blamed, because you got something, because you didn't get something, because you're up, because you're down, right? Okay? Because you're famous, because you're obscure. It doesn't matter if any of those things happen. Just stay on the course, right? Okay. So then the other way of talking about these eight thoughts is talking about emptiness and understanding emptiness to be able to succeed at this practice, at this Lojong practice, and this mind training practice. So the root texts were kept secret for hundreds of years because if I say to you, always take the short end of the stick and always lose and always make sure other people win, what's your natural reaction? Are you crazy? What is your problem? Are you deluded? Right? That is the natural reaction. So if a spiritual teacher, and in fact Tibetan Lama, went out to the village and sat down with everybody and said, let me teach you some profound Dharma now. Always make sure everyone around you wins and you come in last. Not going to work very well, right? So these Lojong texts were actually a very closely held secret teaching lineage, which were only shared with advanced practitioners, because only advanced practitioners can understand the rational basis, the logical, philosophical, karmic basis to live this way and behave this way. And if you don't understand ethics, karma, and emptiness, how can you do this? And how would you even begin to think that this is even credible? You see? If somebody said most of this stuff to you, you'd just be like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Obviously you're whacked, right? And so all of these things are very closely held. First, because it's hard to accept if you're not well educated. And second, even if you're well educated, which people in this room are extremely well educated, it's still very hard to do. Like, go home with your partner and be like, you always win. Right? You go home to whoever you're dating or whoever you're married to and say, you know what? You always win. In your mind, I'm not advocating that you speak the words, right? In your mind, just think, you know what? They're going to always get what they want every time. I challenge you to do that. Right? Yes.
Well, John, I think, another big part of it is if you actually went about to do that, but you didn't prepare yourself properly for years and years and years so that you were capable of doing that without selfish motivation, you'd be doing it, not only would you go nuts, you'd be doing it for the wrong reason and bringing more harmful karma than if you had done nothing.
Yeah, like what happens to your mind when you go home to your partner and you're like, you're right.
You're not thinking
right.
right.
And you just get more and more angry and more pissed off and more frustrated, right?
In the same way that the resentful giving would bring you bad karma.
Right?
Resentful giving.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so if you're not capable of that, truly believing it, because you haven't purified properly, then it's really harming you to do this. So that's maybe another reason they kept it secret,
Yeah. It's so against our basic instincts to take the loss on ourselves, right? Especially if we feel like we're being treated unfairly or unjustly or badly. Like, my wife doesn't appreciate me. My wife doesn't treat me nicely. My wife doesn't do the things that an equal partner would do. I have to do a lot more work than her, and I have a lot more, hassle than her, and she's not pulling her fair share weight in the relationship, and she's got it easy and I got it hard, and you go on and on and on. You come up with your own story, whatever it is, right? It's endless, right? They're not nice enough to me. They're not thoughtful enough to me. They're not loving enough to me, right? You can be ad infinitum, right? This is the opposite of Lojong, right? Lojong says, it doesn't matter how nice they are to me. It doesn't matter how loving they are to me. I'm always putting them first. I'm always making sure they have what they want. I'm always making sure that they feel loved. I'm always making sure that they feel heard. I'm always making sure that they feel served and cared for in every way. I'm always making sure that they have every comfort and every relaxation and everything that they could ever want in every way that I can reasonably accommodate and accomplish in a way that won't freak me out. Whatever that is. At whatever level that is, right? That's my job. Freaking hard. It's absolutely hard, right? I mean, if it weren't hard, as soon as we heard these Buddhist concepts, we never break up again, right? I mean, we'd never have another relationship. We'd be like, okay, I pick you. I'm going to serve you the rest of my life. I mean, that's what happens when you take marriage vows. I mean, I went back and looked at my marriage vows, and I was like, shit, I promised that. I promised that. Oh my God, I'm like such a failure,
When they say, start with vegetables, I mean, we can also start with strangers.
Yeah.
Instead of your partner.
Start with people on the train.
People who are a little easier than our partner. Yeah, you could, sure. Absolutely. Start with your cousin. Don't be too distant. A little bit of a challenge, right? Oh man. Let's see. We've got a lot to cover. So should we do the eight different ways to understand emptiness before or after a break? Do you want to take a break now, or do you want to do the 8 ways of understanding emptiness? What do you feel like?
Can we read more Lojong?
Sure. But I have to do this first.
Yeah, go for
So
it.
would you like to do it now? Or?
Do it now.
Yeah.
I have a lot to do.
Okay, bring it on, bring it on.
Bring it on.
So Chakra Rinpoche says that he taught 8 ideas, which are mentioned in the 8th verse of this Diamond Line Lojong. And it means that you can't practice Lojong unless you understand emptiness, right? You'll fall into the 8 worldly dharmas, these 8 corrupted thoughts mentioned that we just went over, if you don't understand emptiness. If you don't understand emptiness, you're going to think like, you're going to be motivated by avoiding blame or seeking praise and all the rest, okay?
Do you have to be an Arya
To succeed, ultimately, yes.
to practice Lojong?
No, I mean, with all Buddhist paths and practices, right? You have to practice where you are. There's no other choice, right? However, the path of seeing is the point of demarcation where you light the fuse on your rocket. Mm-hmm. So it's like, think in terms of like, what's a really slow conveyance? Think in terms of, being on a, I don't know what. All I can think of is like a scooter, you're pushing yourselves along with one foot on a scooter or something, because my kids have a scooter. Think of like you're trying to like go 1,000,000 miles on a scooter, as opposed to, you're in a supersonic jet or something, right? I mean, it's the more you understand emptiness, the faster you go towards your goal. So the less, not quite the correct grammar, but the less of an understanding you have of emptiness, the slower you go. Because you don't have a basis to understand where things are coming from. The more I think that external stuff is the source of my problem, the more I'm going to act negatively towards it. The more I'm going to react impulsively and instinctively, which is negatively. I mean, the human condition is to return like with like. If somebody smiles at me, I smile back at them. If somebody, yells at me, I want to react the same way. I mean, by and large, right? So that's the normal human condition. And the antidote to the normal human condition is understanding that the things outside of me don't exist, by definition, from their own side, with any nature of their own, right? And that I am supplying their nature and identity and value and everything, right? So that when someone treats me badly, I can logically choose. Because I have the awareness of where things truly come from, I can logically choose how I'm going to act. And it's very hard to say, in the present moment, I am making a conscious choice how I'm going to answer this person. I mean, just think about an ordinary conversation, right? If you think about any ordinary work conversation or interpersonal conversation, you just chat with somebody. How often do we stop and say, should I say that or not? What's a very well-considered thing to say right now? Not very often. It's just a stream of consciousness, right? It's like whatever thoughts arise, we speak by and large, right? So the very act of self-regulating and self-moderating and self-evaluating to say, should I speak that or not? What's the appropriate thing to say here right now? We don't do it very often, even under normal circumstances, even in a nice conversation, even in a pleasant conversation. So when we get into an unpleasant conversation, an unpleasant circumstance, or an emotionally charged situation where we're already riled up and imbalanced and, energy and feelings are bubbling and the brain is sort of confused and clouded by all the energy and emotion, right? All the harder to sort of self-evaluate and self-regulate, right? And say, what would be the appropriate thing to say right now? So, and so the deeper our understanding of reality is, of emptiness is, and where things really come from, the easier it is to self-regulate. The easier it is to step in and say, okay, they're yelling at me, but I don't need to be all emotionally turbulent, and I don't need to be all worked up, and I don't need to be reacting in an unconscious, reflexive way, And it's not easy. It's a practice, and it's a habit. It's a training, like any other training. And the more we train, the easier it is to do. And you'll see, we'll come to one of the lojongs later, where they, where they talk about just that. It's just an unconscious thing. Does that answer the question? Yeah. So he talks about understanding emptiness to succeed at lojong. So there are 8 wrong ideas, 8 wrong understandings about emptiness, which will pollute our lojong practice. And without understanding emptiness, it's actually dangerous to practice lojong, because you just get confused and do the wrong thing. Probably fail, and it'll probably be painful. So when we talk about these 8 wrong ideas, we're talking about different ways in which we think things have a nature of their own, different ways in which we perceive self-existence. I think that self-existent that way, or that way, or that way, or that way, right? So there are a lot of different ways to sort of relate to something as being self-existent. That's really what he's saying. There are 8 different ways you can relate to something as being self-existent. Okay? I mean, there's the basic example, which is, this cylinder is a bottle from its own side. Not even a cylinder, but whatever it is. So that's just simply thinking something is self-existent. This is a cup from its own side, or a mug from its own side, right? All right. So 8 extremes. These come from Arya and Nagarjuna's. So the first is to think that things don't start from their own side. We think that things just start from their own side, right?
You're saying the word "start" is the key word there, right?
As in begin.
As in begin, right?
So if something good begins, right, we think there was a starting point that happened over there, right? Right? Nothing starts without having created a cause for it in the past, the karmic cause for it in the past, right? No good object in our life ever begins unless we have done corresponding goodness in the past, right? So when we meet a wonderful person, it's like, wow, I just met this wonderful person, right? We think that just happened over there. Like, I was over at the cafe and I met them, and it happened at the cafe, and it came together there, and it started. No. It's not because we bumped into each other at the cafe, because we were both at the cafe. That's what happened, but that wasn't the cause, right? So that's the first one. So then, similarly, things don't stop from their own side, okay? If you have a headache, the only reason a headache is going to stop is because you did some other thing where that karma ripened and the next result started, right? If I hurt someone and it ripened into a headache, that karma has a duration and it will continue until it wears out and until the next karma's ripened. Okay? So nothing will end until the karma ends. So the headache did not end because I took aspirin. The headache did not end because 3 hours elapsed and my headaches last 3 hours, right? Or when I go to sleep they end, or whatever it is, right? So nothing ends like that. Okay? Third, things are unchanging. Okay? So, for example, that's just the way it is, and it's always like that. right? If things existed from their own side, they could never change. It wouldn't be possible to attain nirvana or enlightenment, right? So in Buddha's paradise, every detail of the world is absolute bliss. Every detail of every level of existence, every sensory input is the exact equivalent highest bliss, right? That wouldn't be possible if things didn't change, right? But when we look at things and we think, that's a fan, and it's going to stay a fan, and it's not going to change, right? So we tend to think things are changing in general, right? I'm a human being. I'm going to stay a human being. Yeah. Oh, et cetera, right? Oh, sorry. And then fourth way of seeing things self-existently and wrongly is to think that if nothing exists, nothing matters, right? It's that sense that if nothing has any nature of its own, then nothing has any relevance, or nothing has any consequence. Another way of another wrong idea about emptiness. Fifth is believing that things go in the sense of growing. For example, if I go to college and I get a good education, that'll turn into a good job, right? So that something grows into a result in the normal conventional sense, right? Like, growing in the sense of you plant a physical seed and it grows into a physical tomato plant, right? So seeds do grow. Why does a tomato seed grow into a tomato plant? Not because the tomato plant self-existently comes from the tomato seed, right? Next is believing that things come, as in coming to an end or stopping, right? Everything that happens to us is happening because of karmic seeds ripening in our mind, right? So what's coming to us and what's happening and what I'm experiencing, someone treating me nicely, someone treating me badly, is not self-existent, right? It is the ripening of karmic seeds in my mind, right? It seems like what I said 30 seconds ago is causing the person's reaction when I stop speaking at the end of the sentence. If I'm having a conversation with G and I say, G, you look so lovely, then I think, and she says, oh, John, thank you so much, I love you so much, you're so wonderful, I think, I complimented her, see? No. Not like that. That's not how it works, right? It's a self-existent wrong view about how things come on and follow on, right? And then thinking things are one or many, right? When I look at anything in the world, I think there are cups. This is a cup. This is one cup. Cups exist, and there's either one cup or there's a lot of cups. And there's cups. So, that's all. There's stuff out there, and they're either singular or plural.
Wait, so you shouldn't think that way?
That's self-existent view, right? Mm-hmm. That's thinking that there is a self-existent singular cup, and there's a self-existent multiple of cups out there. Right?
You're listing the 8 ways we incorrectly see things as inherently in existence. Is that what this is? Sort of
Yes.
a summary?
Yes. Okay. So 8
Conceptual or wrong conceptions?
Yeah.
Wrong views?
Yeah. 8 ways in which we don't understand how things are empty, you could say.
Yeah.
Don't understand that one cup doesn't exist from its own side, nor does a collection of cups.
Right.
But
Multiple
we think because it's one of a collection that it must exist. For some reason, we
Yeah.
persuade ourselves incorrectly.
Well, we think this is one self-existent cup, so we think there's 10 self-existent cups.
Right.
And it's kind of a Buddhist thing of everything exists is either singular or plural. If it exists, it's either singular or it's plural. So it's sort of a logic thing. Logic. You sort of have a look now.
I don't really understand that.
John, is that Mahamudra, with those 8 things?
No, well, Mahamudra, there are a lot of different meanings for Mahamudra. Mahamudra means the great seal, and it has a lot of different meanings. One of the meanings of Mahamudra is a way of looking at the mind, a way of examining the mind, in which it's a way of examining it's a method to examine how the mind is not self-existent. So similarly, we just went through 8 ways in which we look at the world, or things in the world, as being self-existent, right? We think that there's one self-existent cup. We think that there's all the self-existent cups in the world, right? As opposed to no one cup or no multiple cups are self-existent. I think you can think of it that way. Which includes every cup in existence. If you don't think self-existent that way, don't worry about it. And on and on and on. So when you talk, so that's outer stuff. Things don't start. Things don't stop. I mean, there's a very sort of profound, famous statement to meditate on. Nothing starts, nothing stays, nothing stops. Nothing. There is no starting. There is no continuation. There is no abiding. There is no ending. And so then you can meditate on that. Is that true? And what does that mean? How do you find a starting point of anything? How do you find an ending point of anything? And we're not. But that's another subject. So.
Did you do 8, John, or is it the last one?
Yeah, I think we'll do
So 1, it was 1 is
And then A's and
yeah.
So could you just quickly review what those 8 were again?
Sure,
Those are long.
sure. Things don't start from their own side.
Right.
Things don't stop from their own side. Things are unchanging. Nothing exists and nothing matters. Right? Believing that things go/grow. Believing that things come, as in follow on. And then believing that they exist as one, or that they exist as many.
And that one ultimately just is basically about things don't exist self-existently. One
Yeah.
or many or anyway,
Yeah,
quite frankly.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all 8 of these are that. Yeah.
Well, there are different ways of relating to the world, right? Like if it's really an analysis of how we look at the world and perceive the world. Like
Incorrectly.
I look at my interactions as I put something out, something comes back, and there's causation there. Wrong. Okay? I look at the world as an event starts and an event stops. Wrong. So I like that. Yeah.
We've heard all this before, but
Yeah.
now in the context of Lojong, is it just saying that because of these views, we treat people badly, or is that kind of the essence of it?
No, this is really an elaboration of the verse. So if we go back to the verse, there's a verse. Go back to the verse. It says, "Don't let your Lojong practice be polluted by having the 8 thoughts." Right? So he's saying, if you have these 8 thoughts while you're doing your Lojong practice, you're polluting your practice. And the 8 thoughts could be the 8 worldly dharmas, or it could be these 8 ways of relating self-existently
But
to the
because it's
world.
going to affect how you deal with other people,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's what
absolutely.
Lojong is
Absolutely. Yeah.
narrowing it down to.
Exactly. So anytime you're coming from a self-existent perspective, you're going to mess up. That's the bottom line. And if you're trying to be a bodhisattva practitioner, and you're trying to be loving to people and compassionate and kind, and say, you know what, my bodhisattva vows say, I'm here to serve you and make you happy in every way possible. And then you're thinking, I said this and they said that back, and then you act based on that. You're wrong. You're not in wisdom. So perhaps an easier way to frame this is to say, if you're looking at things in any of these ways, you're not in wisdom. You're not coming from a place of wisdom. And therefore, it'd be very hard to approach it properly as a Lojong practitioner. Does that help?
Yeah, but it's also like we talked about Tonglen before, and now it's as a Lojong practice, which makes sense. You would say Tonglen is a Lojong practice. It's trying to benefit somebody else, but I just don't feel like I've heard it kind of couched in this is Lojong.
Yeah. Well, and we're going to come to a verse later which says the essence of all Buddha's practice is Lojong.
Right.
You know, the essence of all Buddha's practice is giving every
Caring
gain,
about other people is.
giving every gain to everyone else, and not self-cherishing, and having love and kindness, and coming from that place of a good heart, which says, we're all suffering, they're suffering, and there's so many ways of thinking about it, right? So all of those thoughts rolled in whatever way is useful and helpful.
But you really can say Buddhism is Lojong.
Yeah.
Lojong is Buddhism. either way.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And that's why some of the commentaries, and very profound commentaries, say every teaching which is not speaking about ultimate reality / emptiness directly is a figurative teaching. It's in support of ultimate reality and emptiness. It's to lead you to ultimate reality and emptiness, right? And so when we talk about Lojong, the understanding karma and emptiness is at the core of that, or you can't succeed, right? But then you're still got to live your life. It's one thing to sit on a cushion and say, I understand karma and emptiness, right? But then it's another thing to go through your entire life with all of your daily interactions. And the point here that we started off this evening with is it's all your daily interactions all life long that get you to paradise or not.
Is your empty, or is your enlightenment? Yeah.
Yeah, the only way you're getting to enlightenment is through all your interactions all day long.
The only way, not the easier way.
The only way. The only
So
way.
why do these people go up into caves in the mountains for 3 years? What are they thinking? If it's not,
Well, they
getting
think
them to.
I'm not going.
I guess they've already gone through this stage, and yeah.
No, it's
They've already done this, and now they're going to do something
not at all.
further.
It's
like
a
mellow up.
No, it's a valid training. Why do we meditate? I mean, right? Listening, contemplation, meditation. You have to get the ideas intellectually. You have to think about them a lot and get aligned and accept them, right? You have to meditate on them, and you have to internalize them so that they become part of your being and part of who you are. The point of meditating is to bring the ideas into yourself, into your being, into your heart, if you will, so that when you get off the cushion and you go live out to the market and wherever else you are going, your family, that you can behave appropriately and interact appropriately, right? Because, what will it take to be able to stay mindful? Like, is it enough to come to a class once a week for 7 years and hear this for 2 hours and then do it for the rest of the day every day? Probably not. Doesn't work. Personal confirmation probably, if you're an ordinary person, right? So people meditate. If you're meditating well, they're actually burning grooves. They're establishing grooves in the mind and in the heart and in the reflexive behaviors to become a new person, to have a new response. If you're going to go do a Tonglen retreat for a month, you sit there and you practice thinking this way. You do analytical meditations and you visualize yourself responding this way and you meditate this way. And then when you get out of retreat, your behavior changed. And it lasts for however long it lasts, depending upon whether you continue to support that or not. Some people meditate for a month or a week and then they forget about it. And then the effect wears off and you're back to whatever is habituated. And again, this is a training. It's like, if you're a high-performing athlete or dancer or musician, because you've trained for a year, because you've trained for 3 years every day for 8 hours, right? Which is what you would do in retreats, say. And then you stop. So you train every day for 3 years, all day long, and you're peak performance, right? You're doing great. You can do whatever. Great sonata or great performance, recital, anything. And then you're like, well, okay, I'm not going to practice for the next year. Can't do it anymore, right? You can't perform at the same level. It's exactly the same. So, the concerted effort and the concerted practice bumps you up. But you got to keep going. You can't let off, sadly. I want to take a break there. And then when we come back, we'll go into some more mystical verses, mystical Lojong verses that sound kind of cool and sort of might be easy to confuse. So please help yourself and have a snack, and then we'll pick up with some more interesting Lojong verses and read some more verses, okay?